in 24 hours, a hailstorm hits. Y'all know roofers. They are out in the neighborhoods, banging on doors, right? Fighting each other over properties. I received over 100 phone calls, text messages, and DMs in 24 hours from people that said, hey, Lacey said you're the best. Sean said you're the best. James said you're the best. And I've never even had to put pants on. Like, I'm just sitting in the living room fielding phone calls, and I went, oh my gosh, this works. When we actually do it the right way, and we don't do it the way that most of these gurus tell us that we need to do it. And I get to still be here today, traveling the country, serving businesses, and helping people realize that if they can get the right message out in front of people, they're going to win online. And man, it's been so much fun.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast. Sean and Lacey with you, just as we are each and every week. This week, we're going to tackle a topic that so many people probably struggle with. It's kind of the wild, wild west in a way. We've had the opportunity to get to know today's guest and other products that we put out are live. We've done his podcast
and work with him.
I'm going to tackle this topic hard with our guest because the subject of digital marketing is such a wild west category, and it makes me upset sometimes, to be honest, because it's a category where people are self-proclaimed experts. It makes it so difficult because you just read about it. You see your friends killing it. What are you doing? Oh, I've been doing digital marketing for dentist or whatever. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to do that. Well, how'd you learn how to do it? Like, oh, I took this course. And so you send me the link, $49 later, I'm in, different groups and I'm pitching to real estate agents or whatever it is, right? And I'm, hey, are you looking for more clients? This whole, and I don't know if it's a profession or category, has gotten such a bad rap because of bad practices. These guys are learning social media marketing, but the majority of them resort to cold emails and cold DMs, right?
Right.
Like, well, that's weird. Like, if you're such a good digital marketer, why wouldn't you use your own strategies to do this? But then also on the flip side, there's so many people that just don't get results. And that makes it tough because it just sours people on the whole concept. And listen, there's plenty of people out there that are getting phenomenal results with ads and with content, just putting organic content, putting stories out, and their stories convert. But there is a science to this. There's a way to do it. There's a way to do it right. And most certainly there's more than enough ways to do it wrong. So I'm going to dive into that aspect too. I want to know how we can choose a great person to work with. Here, I'll tell you, a great person to work with is Kyle Draper, and he's today's guest. Let's bring Kyle in. Welcome to the None of Your Business podcast.
What's up, guys?
Super happy to have you on. It's always a pleasure.
And the first question that we always ask every guest before we dive into the hard questions. This is going to be an interesting question. But this, from what we know about you, this is going to be really good. And I also think that it's also very important. As people are hearing you speak, we ask every single guest to tell us a little bit about their creation story. How did they end up here? And I just said, like, you could say, well, I was fixing cars and then I decided to go into this space because my friend was doing so well in it. But your story is actually quite interesting. And let me tell you why we asked this, Kyle, because especially like in this topic, it's easy for people to say, oh man, you have Kyle Draper on the show. Dude, I love that guy. I see him on social media. He runs these challenges. He's great. Got his book. I wish I could be like him, but unfortunately, Kyle obviously caught a bunch of breaks that I haven't had. And what we've learned about our guests is that, listen, every single one of our guests, every single one of them so far has had a very interesting story. And none of them have said, well, my dad was really successful in the thing that I do. And so I just, by blood, here I am. So we love to hear the story of how you end up here. Where were you before this? What were some of the lessons that you've learned? And describe some of the pits and holes that you've fallen into.
Ooh. Well, I'll tell you guys, I'm still waiting for that break. So
Yeah.
if you know a guy that's passing them out, I will take one.
That's right.
You just let me know the form that I need to put my info in.
Love it.
So I want to, I'm going to put my hat on backwards so we can get, remember that Sylvester Stallone movie, that over the top,
the arm wrestling,
so we're going to get serious for a minute. So I want to tell a part of the story that we didn't talk about on the live to kind of give people a reason to go pay attention to both. But I grew up wanting to be in sports, obsessed with sports, everything sports, was going to college to be a sportscaster for ESPN. Right before I graduated, I felt a calling to go become a pastor. Super different from my intentions. And so I quit school, started interning, then became assistant, worked my way up the ladder as a pastor. And then about 10 years into that, I just felt this calling to leave the church world and go be a business person with the heart of a pastor. And so I jumped into roofing. And then from roofing, I jumped into building websites for real estate agents. And then from there, I turned into this social media expert, I guess. And I hate to use that word because I don't think it's a word that we can put on ourselves, but that's a word that people say about me. I don't really know how I got here, guys. But it was through a lot of trial and error. And the story that I want to tell that I don't think I told the last time I was on with y'all is when I knew that this stuff works, when I knew that social media, when done correctly, works, I was in roofing and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Facebook Live had just become a thing. And so I was doing Facebook Live on the roofs of houses. I was doing everything I could to be visible to people. I was also networking and just getting to know people. And I became known around town. They're like, why do I know you? Oh, you're that Facebook guy. Huh. And I became known around Oklahoma City as the Facebook guy. And I realized like people would start asking me like, how's Harrison? And I go, wait a minute. You don't know. You've never met my son. How do you know? Oh, you've been watching us post. And so you're seeing him grow and he got a new tooth. And so all this is beginning to happen. And then the first hailstorm comes through Oklahoma. And guys, I kid you not, this is not an exaggeration. In 24 hours, a hailstorm hits. Y'all know roofers. They are out in the neighborhoods, banging on doors, right? Fighting each other over properties. I received over 100 phone calls, text messages, and DMs in 24 hours from people that said, hey, Lacey said you're the best. Sean said you're the best. James said you're the best. And I'd never even had to put pants on. Like I'm just sitting in the living room, fielding phone calls. And I went, oh my gosh, this works when we actually do it the right way. And we don't do it the way that most of these gurus tell us that we need to do it. And I get to still be here today, traveling the country, serving businesses and helping people realize that if they can get the right message out in front of people, they're going to win online. And man, it's been so much fun.
It's so interesting because those are such like big leaps. Like to go from I want to work at ESPN to
I wish he'd have gone to ESPN. Kyle would have been killer on ESPN.
I'm gonna be a roofer to I build websites. So I want to just go back to like obviously you're like this works. I was doing Facebook Lives from the rooftops, and I imagine that did wonderful things for your business, having 100 people call and ask for your service. So how do you go from, wow, I found the formula to build a successful roofing company to, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to build websites for roofers. Like, where do we go there?
Yeah. Lacey, I'm not going to say that the decisions that I've made have all been good ones.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't necessarily encourage my path to wherever people think that I am or I am. But for me, I'll tell you the roofing thing. If you've ever been on a roof when it's 100 degrees outside, you'll understand why I so quickly cold turkey was like, nah, this isn't for me anymore.
Fair enough.
I'm leaving. So it truly was. I was on a roof in the middle of August in Oklahoma. It was 100 plus degrees outside. The bottoms of your shoes are literally beginning to stick to the roofs. Like that's how hot it is, right? Because the shingles are like 180 degrees. And I just remember standing there going, like, this isn't it for me. This is not my desire. I don't want this. And luckily, my dad and my brother were in the business with me. And so it wasn't just as cold turkey of a thing as it sounds. Like I still kind of remained the mouthpiece to some degree, but they really did more of the day to day. And I'd met so many realtors through roofing that when I met my friend that built websites, I just thought, I get to do most of this job in the AC. And so I think I can do this really well, working hand in hand with realtors. And so it was very random. But I also want to say, like, my parents were very intentional. Like, they were very successful entrepreneurs. And I got to watch them do what they love for 30 years. And so there was a part of me that knew that I'd rather start over and go back to not making any money, but being on a path to do what I love than to just stay somewhere where I wasn't happy, but my bank account got bigger. And I don't know that has to be the right or wrong answer for everybody, but for me, I just had no desire and still have no desire to make a lot of money, but be unhappy in the process. And so it took me, like 3 different pivots to truly land in a place where I'm like, I love this. If I'm never rich, but this is what I get to do, I could do it forever.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to the roofing business?
It's still around. It's a multi-million-dollar company. My dad and my brother run it. It's based out of Oklahoma City and Dallas-Fort Worth. And they refuse to accept my help. So they're great at what they do, but they suck at social media.
Well, let's talk about sucking at social media. Go ahead.
Before we go there, I want to pick up one other piece.
Oh.
Tell us lessons that you learned about marketing from being in the church. I'm always fascinated by that. A lot of the world's biggest churches, I don't know if they're the best, but the biggest, are really, really social media savvy.
Oh, yeah.
Really social media savvy. It's big business, right? And so from a marketing standpoint, man, you're not going to grow a really big church if you don't understand social media. I would love to know, obviously this was not yesterday that you were doing this, but what are some of the business and marketing lessons that you learned from your time being a pastor at a church?
Sean, I think the first one I didn't learn while I was there. I think it's more looking back. Is what churches have gotten really good at is making content out of what they're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they realized, like, we do this hour-long service every Sunday morning or every Saturday night, every Wednesday night. And so if all we do is just capture what we're already doing, we have content. And I think, it would be easy for the layperson that's just listening to this or watching going, yeah, but that's different because they have like a full service with lights and sound and, music and speaking. But I think there's a huge lesson in you already live your life every day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you would just pull out a camera every once in a while as you're in the middle of it, you would be amazed at how many people actually care what you're doing, what you have to say. And so I think that was a huge lesson that the church is really better at than most people, most businesses, is just taking advantage of the opportunities that they already have.
I love that. We always say, people say to us like, I have such a hard time making content.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what, are you dead? Because if you are living a life, right, if you are alive, then you're making content. So really what you're saying is not that I have a hard time making content, I have a hard time capturing the content that I'm making, because right now we're making content, right?
Yeah, but that's their mindset issue, right? Is they feel like everything has to be generated or created and then captured versus just capturing what you're already doing.
And I just have to say, it kind of, I mean, I'm aware of this, obviously I'm going to say it, but when Kyle said that, it really dawned on me. We talk a lot about jumping into other verticals. So this has nothing to do with our conversation with Kyle, but from a None of Your Business podcast perspective, when he said that, capturing this content that they're already creating, I always think about in praise and worship, some of these really good mega churches, they were like, listen, if we're already going to be having praise and worship, first of all, let me get myself on the byline of these songs, right? So I get some rights to these songs. Second of all, since, let's just invest and get the best worship band on the planet. And then let's monetize that by making albums, right? And then let's send these guys out on tour so that they can actually evangelize not just the word, but our church. Because then people are going to be like, dang, that church has those guys. I mean, when you think about the business of the church, I mean, and all of the things that we can learn from that, man, we're already creating content. And then they're like, we're going to monetize this, not just from offerings. We're going to make albums and sell them out there into the world.
I was just going to say, I have a note in my phone under notes that says lessons from the mega church. And I have about 25 things on there because I've discussed this here with my coach, but talking about, because not only are they great at creating content, but they're great at creating culture and community that translates through their content, which I think is difficult for a lot of businesses. And that's something that they do super, super well. And they do that, like you said, by capturing what they're already doing.
Love it.
Well, and what I think this is really important conversation, even though it's very different than where we started. But if you look at any business, good things happen as you're already in motion, right? So Sean, every step you just laid out, the next step wasn't possible had the previous step not happened. Right. And so none of those churches sat there and were like, okay, we want to start a church. But really, we want to have worship albums. Mm-hmm. That's not how the thought process worked, right? It was all very gradual. And so for us, we have a company that you guys have worked with called Content Compounding, where we create content. Through that company, we've hired over 15 full-time VAs from the Philippines in our company. And we looked up 90 days ago and thought, we're really good at this. Other companies need help through VAs, but they have no idea what to do, how to do it, how to lead them. And so now we're starting another company called Hire Culture VA where we will hire out VAs for other American-based companies. But I didn't set out to do that.
Right.
I just set out to do what I knew I needed to do. And then out of that obedience and that action, new opportunities present itself. And most people, they just get so stuck in the fear of starting that they just stay dreaming. Right? So they dream 5 or 6 steps down the road because as long as I'm dreaming, I don't have to start.
Right.
And that's why the megachurch does what they do, because they started and then they evolved and they really are an incredible picture of just what the evolution can look like when we start from action and then dream as we go.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, even if we want to bring it back a little bit to social media, I think that for so many business owners and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs out there, they understand that social media could be the catapult or the catalyst to their success, yet they have issues starting, right? It's this constant well, let me think about if I do this, then I'll have this. I know if I get on lives, then I could get this. But you're right. It's this constant dreaming of what could be if I started my social media journey. But most people don't start. So why do you think that is?
Well, for most of us, we hate failing. Most of us already feel like failures anyway, whether we're willing to admit that to somebody or not. And so I think that has a big thing to do with it. I think it's also, I know this was a struggle for me. Like, my wife is my best friend, my favorite person on the planet. And so early on in my content creation, I would want her to watch every video I ever did. And I wanted her to critique it. But what I really wanted her to do is go, "You're amazing. This is incredible. Oh my gosh, I'm so lucky to be married to you." But the opposite would happen, because no one knows me better than her. So she can critique the details of things that no one else can. And so I would leave every critique session going, "I'm not going to post this. You're right. Like, I don't know why my nose does that when I say that word." And so the game changed. Like, and I'm trying to make light of this, but in all honesty, the moment I stopped asking her for her critique was the moment I started crushing content, because I was no longer putting a roadblock in between me and taking action every time I would record a video. And so for somebody listening to this, the only advice you need from this entire episode is stop asking your significant other to approve your content, because they're not your ideal client anyway. That was a huge realization for me. Like, I can't make money off of my wife.
Right.
And so her opinion in and of my content didn't matter. She was thankful that I quit asking, and I was better off for not asking. And so I think that's a huge reason why we struggle, is because the people we love the most understand it the least. And they become our harshest critic as we try to get something off the ground.
I like to talk about.
I was just thinking about how many times you've seen stuff and have been able to criticize me. Although Sean does know about social media, and James is like my bigger advocate. I'm like, man, I'm going to stop asking Sean to look at my stuff.
You should.
You should.
100%.
I know, I
boom.
should. You see all the little ticks and things.
Remove the roadblock. All right, so I see this, Kyle, in 3 phases, or at least kind of how we teach it. You may change it, modify it, expand upon it. But basically, we have to create and capture content. Then we have to have people see it, amplify the content. People got to see it. Then I've got to put the content to work. I've got to convert, because otherwise people are I'm just entertaining, which I guess if I was a comedian or an artist, that would be the purpose of it. But I still got to sell paintings or albums. I've got to put it to work. Walk us through a little bit, like, your view on that, and give us some tips on how we can maximize our experience in getting social media to work for us. Because I think one of the roadblocks is that people understand, like, oh, I need to do more content. Maybe they even watch, some of your content, and they're like, you're right. I'm gonna get over myself. I'm going to do it. But then, like, you're in it and you're like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, which gives me an excuse to go back on the couch and not do content. So let's try and overcome some of that for some of the viewers.
Yeah. So I love, Sean, that you broke it down into kind of 3 categories. And I'll tell you guys up front, I'm still not the best at the 3rd category. Like, my team is still trying to figure out what monetization looks like. How do we create the right funnel? What is that process? Is it email? Is it phone calls? It's all hard. But again, we can't solve the 3rd area if we haven't done anything with the first 2. And so my tip really for the first category is become your own cameraman. Like, just start documenting what you're doing. Keep it very simple. So very simple. Like, I have what I call like a content phone. And actually, like, this was my wife's old phone that I was supposed to turn back into AT&T, and I forgot. And so I was like, oh no, I didn't forget. This is my content phone. And so I paid for it. And so here we go. So if I'm on a call, I'll just prop this up over off to the side. And now, like, it'll just record me behind the scenes while I'm on the phone, while I'm on Zoom teaching, right? And it's very simple. Be your own cameraman. You're having interesting conversations throughout the day. You're just not recording any of them. And then you sit down and go, okay, I got to record content. And because this posture, looking into a camera, is so uncomfortable, you completely forget about all the conversations you just had, because now you've been convinced by some guru somewhere that, oh man, you gotta always have the right hook, and you gotta always perfect the content. You gotta and they give you the strategy that's meant to attract strangers, and then we go and deploy it on our friends. And so we have to just simplify. Get in front of the camera, period. Because I can't critique what you're not willing to do. And for so many of us, like, we're trying to figure out, how do I get more followers? But your content sucks. And so what do you want more followers for? So that you can have more people tell you how bad you are? And so let's use our time in the shadows wisely to just get more comfortable in front of the camera. And that would really, like, to me, that's the most practical advice that I could give somebody for kind of step one of your 3-step process.
Well, you also, though, you said still kind of sharpening the axe on step 3. Let's look at step number 2. Once I get going and I start to feel like I'm finding a rhythm, a lot of people kind of stumble into things and they're like, wow, people are liking this content. People like when I talk about sleep disorders or migraines or how to groom your dog, whatever it is. But then I need more people to see it. Well, actually, I just need the right people to see it.
Yep.
How do I get into getting my content into the hands of the right people?
So we could do a whole episode, which y'all probably already have before, of like really developing who we think our avatar is. Mm-hmm. And so that should help, right? Like you know, we both know like Brandon Brown, who, you know, was already a chiropractor. So that kind of helped him niche down a little bit. But then out of nowhere, he's like, holy cow, people really like it when I talk about migraines. And then boom, the dude skyrocketed on TikTok the moment he got intentional about migraines. And so we have to put up enough of a variety in content to really give people the opportunity to tell us what they like. And so that's one route. I think there's really a couple ways that you can do it. That's one route, right? Just keep throwing crap on the wall until something sticks, and then really go all in with that type of content. The other way, and this is really more my strategy, is I'm a big fan of the right people, not the most people, because I already know who I am. I don't do social media because I need a pat on the back or because I need a bunch of strangers to tell me how great I am. Like, I show up every day knowing that, like, I am made perfect. God set me apart. Like, I am unique and different. And so I already know who I am and what I want to be. And then I make content that I'm proud of. And so whether that's getting stuff, viewership in the hundreds or viewership in the thousands, you won't see me waver too much because I have this niche that I truly want to serve. And so you kind of have to pick, which entry point you want to come in at. But most people have no clarity on who they are as a human. So they're going to naturally go chase what's going to get clicks. And then they're going to chase that route. I think, honestly, that's an easier route to go, because knowing who you are, understanding yourself, desiring to be refined and leave your ego out of it, it's way harder.
Yeah, I think so many people, I was thinking about that when you were talking, so many people are chasing the concept of like going viral, right? Like everybody's like, oh, I need a video to go viral and get millions and millions of views, whether it's on TikTok or Instagram, and we're chasing how many views that we get. But especially if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, views don't matter if they don't convert. So why are you chasing the clicks and the views in a way that's inauthentic if it doesn't even help your business in the first place, right? And I think that's
100%.
something to think about. Like, that's why the quantity of people doesn't matter as much as the quality, and quality gets attracted to you when you're authentic, right? I mean, that's the reality of it.
Oh, so. Absolutely. And most people, we're not patient. We don't really want to work hard. So we're looking for that silver bullet, that viral opportunity. for you guys, like y'all are getting to the place where you probably are having people go, where did y'all come from? Right? Like you kind of look like y'all just shot up out of nowhere. And then you get to know you guys and it's like, oh my gosh, like what a journey this has been. And the reason you can give it away and help people is because 99% of the people that you give it to aren't going to be dedicated enough to go do it like you did. Mm-hmm. And so we're just looking for that, like, how can I get lucky? And it's not a great route. Yeah. If you have 100 followers that absolutely love you, you can grow a really successful business through those 100 people. But you got to put your ego aside because your ego is going to go, dude, you're a loser. You have 100 people. But if those 100 people are all paying you money, that's so much more powerful than if you've got 100,000 followers, but 10 of them are actually paying you something. And this is the conversation that just doesn't happen very often because our ego won't let us like bring humility to the table. But I think it's the most powerful part that we can implement.
Yeah. I got to ask about the book. I got to ask about the program. But before I do that, when you say that ego, I just think about so many people, again, like they know, like I've never met somebody, well, maybe in your family in the roofing business, I've never met somebody who's like, we don't need that. Right. We don't need that. People recognize the value, but there's so many reasons why they don't do it. I mean, and they're all just fluff, like stories that they're telling themselves. Yeah. One of the other ones is I don't like when, I put content out there. I tried my best. And yes, it can be difficult maybe to hear it from your spouse, but it really sucks when it's some, random person that doesn't even have a profile picture and they're writing like, how'd you get on my feed? Take this trash off of here. Any advice for that sort of ego bruise that happens when, those the trolls,
cowboys,
they show up and start saying, like, who are these people anyways? Like, it's never been someone I know. Who are these people? Yeah. And how do we protect our ego in that scenario?
I think there's probably a million ways to answer this. For me, I think it has to come back to where you get your identity. And so for me, right, like I've always looked at what does scripture say that I am, right? Who does God say I am as a child of his? And so I am very quick to go, okay, this is the lie that I'm being told. This is the nasty comment that's come in. I'm going to stack this up against what I believe. And is there any truth to what this person is saying? Because, right, the scariest thing is, Sean, is what if the troll's right? And so what if we're so quick to write off the troll when there could be a level of truth in what this person is saying? And so, I'm going to stack it up against who God says I am. But then I also, my parents used to always tell me, eat the fish and spit out the bones. Like, I truly believe that there is something to be learned, even in the harshest of comments. And it may only be 1%, but I've always tried, at least in the last couple of years, to really like check, like, is my ego responding to this? Or am I in humility truly going, okay, hold on. I know this guy was trying to be a jerk, but maybe he's uncovering something that actually is true about me that I have the opportunity to grow from. And man, it's unbelievable when we begin to adopt this mindset that I can learn from absolutely anybody, even the person who was trying on purpose to hurt me. And it shifts your entire way of doing life because no one now can hurt me. I truly convinced myself that, like, you're trying to help me. You didn't articulate it correctly, but you were trying to help. And it just changes the way that I see haters or even people in our real lives that want to hate on us. It changes the game when I can truly convince myself that, like, hey man, thank you. Thank you for trying to mold me and get the rough edges off. And it sounds so stupid, but it's a game changer for like the positivity that exists in my life because I truly feel, for the most part, like unshakable by most people.
Yeah. I mean, So I'm just thinking about all of the great advice that you've already given this episode, from becoming your own videographer. First off, I hope that people captured that, because that should lift a weight off of a lot of individuals that think they need everything to be perfect to get out content, but to how to deal with haters. So tell us a little bit about how you interact with your clients, like what program you offer and how they could get more advice from you.
Yeah. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. I say crazy stuff. So, fact check anything, guys, that you get from me. But I love several things. My absolute greatest passion is speaking. So anybody listening that your people need to be better at social media, your sales team needs to be encouraged and loved on, and ultimately better in front of the camera, I would love the opportunity to serve your people. That's my favorite thing on the planet to do. I have a company that edits your content. We take long form content and then turn it into reels, TikToks, YouTube shorts, so that for less than an hour of your time a month, you get almost a video a day to be able to leverage on social. We've got our new VA company that we've kind of soft launched. And so if you're recognizing that, like, I still do all the busy work in my business, yet that's not how I make money, there are unbelievable people, as y'all know, overseas that are men and women with MBAs, and like they were pre-law, and then they decided that working with an American company could actually be better for them. And so I would love to have any of those conversations. And you go get the book, Rethink Everything You Know About Social Media. It truly, I haven't figured out how to say this humbly, but guys, it's the only book I've ever read about social media that has zero fluff in it. There is not a wasted page in the 99 pages of the book. I highly encourage anybody to go get you a copy, or 10.
Yeah.
Or 10 or 20. Wow. Well, hey, I got to let everybody know too. I want to encourage everybody to jump on our YouTube channel and search for the YouTube live, Sean and Lacey live that we did with Kyle, where we spent time with him, and he dropped so many other gold nuggets for people that are actionable and applicable. And for anybody who's like, wait, I don't even know about these lives, we rarely have actual guests on the lives. Usually it's just you and I.
Yep.
There's been 2 guests in the history of the show, I believe. Is that right, James?
3.
3 guests in the history of the show.
Wow.
And we're talking to one of them today. And so, listen, this is not a fluff show. Like, no fluff on any pages. This is not a fluff show. We want you to reach out to Kyle, KyleDraper.com. Yep. That's where you can find all of the things that you can interface with him in all of the areas. I don't know if the VA is on there, the VA company, because that's brand new, I think.
It doesn't even have a website yet.
Doesn't have one.
Okay.
You got to go to Kyle Draper.
Really good.
Yeah, you did go to KyleDraper.com.
You can get the book there.
You just reach out to him and be like, I need some info on the VA company, and he will get you set up. Kyle, absolutely love speaking to you. We could speak all day, but that wouldn't really serve our viewers and listeners that well. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's an honor. Thank you, guys.
We'll do some more things together for sure. Go to www.KyleDraper, K-Y-L-E, KyleDraper.com. You can plug in with all things Kyle, and make sure that you actually plug in. Like, don't say, I get these messages like, wow, that was such a great episode. And I'm like, I'll say like, hey,
so
did you reach out and connect with Kyle? Nah, it was a great episode. Don't be that person. Plug in with Kyle. Kyle,
baby
so
formula
much.
is expensive. Guys,
yes, that's right.
No, I need some help over here.
He's got a handful of kids over there.
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you too. All right, everybody. We'll be back again next week with a brand new episode of the None of Your Business podcast. Don't miss it.